Welcome back to On the Move with Victor Shi. This is Victor Shi. It is Tuesday, June 20th, and as all of us know, truth and facts mean increasingly less and less to Americans. People believe in conspiracy theories, and in large part because people with significant platforms and followings spread misinformation. And we saw that unfold just this past weekend as a bunch of billionaires, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Elon Musk, and Joe Rogan, teamed up against Dr. Peter Hotas, who is a nationally acclaimed epidemiologist and scientist, simply because he wouldn't go on Joe Rogan's podcast and debate RFK Jr. Today, we're going to talk about this war on truth and facts against science and scientists waged by people who know far better in our society and what we can all do about it. And I'm joined by a Florida scientist and COVID-19 whistleblower, Rebekah Jones, to break it all down. Rebekah, thank you so much for joining me today. It's so great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm always down for joining a discussion about attacking scientists online.
Yeah, well, it's such a problem, and it shouldn't be even happening in our country, but it's happening, and I'm grateful to be talking to you about it. But I want to start off by asking you about this entire episode with Dr. Hotas, because you're a scientist and you've unfortunately been attacked heavily by the far right. Tell us what you make of the entire episode that we're seeing right now between the billionaires of the world, basically, and Dr. Hotas.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of tactics that are employed by people who spread disinformation, especially on the social media landscape. But this is your classic case of dogpiling. So you had a couple of influential people on the website, including the owner himself, who started heavily criticizing a person, completely unaware of why it was happening or the severity of what was happening. In this case, a Nobel Prize nominated physician and pediatrician. And once that started, they just kept fueling the frenzy. It was like they were throwing chum to the sharks while, the scientists were in the water freediving. And it can get very aggressive, very violent. And we saw that when it culminated with people showing up to his home in Texas.
No, it's so disgusting. I'm wondering kind of what you make of this moment now where, I mean, it basically seems like if you attack someone for enough, and if you get people who have a lot of power, it can result in violence. I mean, how do you even start to combat that?
Well, Peter and I have been close friends for years now. We both went through the COVID disinformation attacks, especially by DeSantis, who targeted both of us. And the first steps are always get a bodyguard. It sounds insane and unfortunate that you have to do that, but I had to know the numbers of bodyguard resources. You can do your best to try to stay calm, be positive online, but that's only going to go so far. I've noticed that the best way to fight back is to keep focus on the issue that you wanted to bring attention to in the first place, because right now everybody is watching what he's doing and saying. Yeah. And like right after when I was raided on orders of DeSantis, that is the perfect moment to make sure that people are hearing your message. And so that's important to remember. But we have to keep in mind, these are people. Peter's my friend. He's a good person. And he's had death threats. He's had people print his address on packets of bullets with his name on it. And he's been sending me, some of the stuff that's going on. And as blasé as he loves to pretend to be, or as we all try to present ourselves to be, it is hard. And it can be very isolating and scary. And Twitter's doing nothing about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not just scary for him, but it's also scary for his wife, his family. And you would imagine that people who hold that much wealth and purport to be so knowledgeable about the world would know better, but they don't. And as someone who's kind of been on the receiving end of this and who's seen this kind of all unfold, what do you think their kind of end goal is here? Why are they doing this? I mean, I would hope that they would know better, but it doesn't seem like they do.
Or they do and they don't care. I mean, Joe Rogan makes his money based on how many people stream his podcast and subscribe to all of the forums that he does. If he's not controversial, if he's not getting attention, then he loses money. Elon Musk is the same way. He needs to bring numbers to investors to show them that the site is active, that people are engaging, and nothing does that more than a huge, controversy like this keeping Twitter in the news. And as horrible as it is, all of the horrible things that are being said and done to Peter on that website, that's just engagement. The best thing to do when you see people engaging in this is not to retweet those people. If you want, take a screenshot and then post it yourself, because otherwise you're just linking right back to their account. And don't engage with them, because the more that you engage with these types of people, I've noticed, the worse it gets. And even if they're saying something outlandish and you just want to say, F off, don't, because all it's going to do is bring more of them into it. It happens to me on every single thing I post. If people engage with the trolls, more of them show up.
Interesting. And I want to talk to you about that a little bit later on in the conversation, but I first want to kind of connect this to this broader attack on science, which is one of the few areas in society where facts are so essential. And we saw that, you mentioned some other scientists, but Dr. Fauci also was attacked by the right. He had to get bodyguards, and there were lots of death threats against him. And we see that so clearly with COVID in this vaccine debate, when there shouldn't even be this debate. How dangerous of a position does that put scientists and science as just a field now?
It's definitely had a chilling effect. I think it depends on your position. I was a government scientist, and when my home was raided, there were a lot of people who were afraid to speak out after that. That's a kind of power that no one wants to go up with. This is more of citizen terrorism, unfortunately, versus state sanctioned types, but it makes people afraid to correct people, even if it's just online and they're not an account that's notable and they just want to say, hey, something to do with El Nino is not necessarily this climate change thing, but it has been getting worse. Then they can expect that they're going to end up on somebody's list on Twitter, tracking people who support the climate change hoax. And every time they tweet now, they're going to be attacked. That makes us not want to engage. It makes us not want to be present. People like me and Peter, who have these huge profiles and these huge platforms, are different than anybody who just wants to get started. How do I just talk to people about my research? Now that is tantamount to being a public figure, which means you can't file complaints for harassment with the police if you're a public figure. You can't, even just sit at home without somebody showing up to your house and attacking you. So it scares people. And scientists, we fall into some of those traps where our personalities maybe aren't the kind that really want to go out of our way to interact with the press or the media or the general public to begin with. And so it's just another incentive to not engage with the public. And the fewer of us that there are who know what we're talking about in the public sphere, the worse off the general public is.
I mean, have you tried to reach to the other side now? I mean, I can't think of ever a time where kind of facts have meant less. And as a scientist, where, again, so much of your work is rooted in facts and the hard evidence, how do you even have that conversation with someone who, say, doesn't, support vaccines or who questions the basic premise of research? What are some of the tips that you can kind of give our audience and that you use yourself?
Well, I debated Matt Gaetz on live TV, and that went splendidly for him. Believe me, that's why he had the video taken down. But we still have it if you want tips. There's a great example of an interview that Josh Fox, who's an Academy Award nominated documentarian who made the film about Gasland and natural gas fracking, went on to Tucker Carlson's show. And it's like a masterclass in an interview. I would suggest you watch it. But mostly there are a lot of ways that these people will attack. They'll spread disinformation even about what has happened to Peter. They're out there lying about whether or not people showed up to his house. So the best thing to do is to make sure your sources are reputable. And if you can tell very quickly that someone's just attacking another person, or if they're engaged in what's called, online terrorism and cyber gangs, then disengage, cut them off. Block them, report them, because without that, they don't have reach. And that's the most important thing you can do, is make sure that these people don't get attention for what they're doing.
So you live in Florida, and we were talking about this right before we went live, just kind of all the craziness that's happening in Florida. Give us a sense of kind of what's happening down there, because I think, previously, I guess right before the show, I did podcast with Andrew Warren, who is a prosecutor down there, and he got fired from his position. Give us a sense of kind of what's happening down in Florida and kind of the threat that Ron DeSantis poses for those who may not follow it closely.
It's terrifying to be here, and that's why I'm leaving. I couldn't be out of here fast enough. As soon as we could get the date for a house out of state, we're gone. So it's everything. I mean, I have 2 school-age kids. One's going to be starting kindergarten. And I have to worry about Moms for Liberty deciding, that they want to review all the books before the children are allowed to read them in kindergarten, which happened in a school, I believe, in Duval County. And DeSantis targeted the teacher who made the video about it, even made propaganda videos attacking a teacher who simply shared online that the bookshelves are empty pending review. Everything that you do here now, it feels like we're living in an authoritarian state where everything is watched and cataloged and used against you. We're not safe. I mean, they passed a law that the state can take people's children if they think that they're at risk for gender affirming care. And that is as thin in the statute as being supportive of your child's gender identity. And that's kidnapping.
Yeah.
This is not a safe place. This is not and despite what they say, people are not flocking here. There's actually an active brain drain going here in younger generations. Lots of old people, as they always have, continue to retire here at rates similar to what they were doing before. And young people who are young parents, are fleeing. Teachers are fleeing. This isn't a good place to be. You know, it's kind of ironic. Donald Trump wrote an amazing press release about all of the things that are very wrong with Florida and nailed it quite well. It's a beautiful place. I wish it wasn't like this. And it wasn't like this when I moved here, like 7 years ago. But it's not a good place for people. It's not a good place for kids.
Do you think more people are kind of understanding that reality now? I mean, obviously he's running for president, Ron DeSantis is running for president, but come the next election, will people still vote for him, do you think?
Well, he can't run for governor again. Florida, well, as the law stands, you are term limited to 2 terms. But he also just changed the law so that he didn't have to resign to run for president, which was the law before then. So who knows? Maybe he'll anoint himself king with the Florida legislature at his back. But yeah, I think what happened in 2022 in Florida was a disaster for the Democratic Party, the lowest turnout we've had in over a decade. And the fact that Ron DeSantis had voters raided in their underwear and then aired it as propaganda, part of his Florida voter fraud crackdown, all of which those cases have been dismissed because they legally registered to vote, probably scared a lot of people.
Yeah, no, definitely. My last question to you is, I mean, given the moment that we're in right now, and you being a scientist and our conversation about science, what is the role of scientists now? What do you have to say to future generations, younger generations that want to be scientists, but kind of look at this moment and are frankly scared of kind of what happens if they do become one?
Well, science has never been more important. My background academically is actually in climatology. So I study climates and mostly hurricanes over the last 10,000 years. Ended up at the Department of Health as an environmental scientist, but it's never been more important. And we need brilliant, brave people to go into science. We need nerds. You know, we need people who want to spend all day in the lab and not deal with people. We need people who love dealing with people. We need everybody, because science is where innovation, invention, where everything that pushes society forward happens. And without that, we are at a stalemate. And not everybody has to be public, and not everybody has the choice about being public. I didn't. But if you choose to do that, there are unfortunate realities right now. I don't think it's going to be like that forever. And if you have a good support network around you, you find friends like I found Peter and Dan Ellsberg and other people who go through it who understand. But we shouldn't be silent because they're trying to outshout the truth. And we certainly should not stop doing research because people lie about what it means.
Absolutely. Well, Rebekah, I'm sorry for all that you had to go through, but just know that, your work is so important and your voice is so important. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Well, that was a chilling episode with Rebekah Jones, who, as I said during this episode, I mean, she sounded the alarm bells in Florida about COVID vaccines. She was someone who refused to manipulate data about COVID, and that kind of moment led to where she was now and kind of being fired from her position. So, I mean, first of all, what's happening in Florida is really sad, but also just this broader attack on science and scientists who just do their jobs is just, I think it shouldn't be happening in our democracy. It shouldn't be happening in America. This is just another unique kind of circumstance, and what purports to be the place where a shining light on the hill. And so thank you, Rebekah, for all that you do. And hopefully everyone is alarmed by that. And hopefully you all enjoyed this new time. We are now live at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, because of me being in DC. Hopefully you all get used to this time. Spread the word that the time is new. So if those who may not have known, tell them it's at 6 p.m. Eastern now, not 11 a.m. Eastern. We thank everyone for tuning into this episode, and hopefully you all enjoy this new time and not new format, but new time. And we'll tune in the coming days and weeks to come. We have some exciting guests for you later this week, so you don't want to miss those. Again, they'll be at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, right here on either youtube.com/Politicon or on my Twitter feed, VictorShe2020. We will be live, and we thank you for tuning in, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.